Hi, I'm Father Joseph Mary, and welcome back to A Simple Word, where we reflect on the gospel for the coming Sunday. This Sunday's gospel asks the question, what's in a name? The parable tells the story of the rich man and Lazarus and their eventual eternal fates. And as always, the intended audience of this story is crucial. Luke begins with, Jesus said to the Pharisees. This parable is intended specifically for the religious leaders. So let's begin by looking at the first part of the parable. Luke introduces us to the two key characters in this story, and their circumstances couldn't possibly be more contrasting. First, Luke tells us there was a rich man who dressed in purple garments and fine linen and dined sumptuously each day. Now, first off, and most striking, this rich man has no name. The tradition refers to him simply as dives, the Latin translation for rich. He's a man without an identity. Now, this rich man lived in extreme luxury and an almost arrogant opulence. He was clothed in the finest of purple linens. Who else wore fine robes of purple linen? The Jewish high priest. Remember to whom Jesus is addressing the parable. This purple linen was so expensive, it would have cost a working man nearly 2 months' wages to purchase. The purple dye was obtained from the neck vein of a rare Mediterranean fish, and the fine linen worn underneath was produced from the flax that grew on the banks of the Nile River in Egypt. This was an extremely wealthy man. But there's something deeper here. The Greek word porphron, which we translate as purple, is also translated as scarlet. Remember the words of Isaiah, though your sins be as scarlet. This is a man wrapped in wealth and yet saturated in sin. This rich man, dives, feasted in luxury every day of his life. And again, the Greek's more descriptive. The term feasted is euphrenominos, which is the word used for costly dining on exotic dishes. In Palestine in the time of Jesus, common people were fortunate if they could afford to eat meat even once a week. And yet this rich man gorges himself on exotic meats every day. Luke then introduces us to a character whose circumstances couldn't be a more polar opposite. Lying at the door of this rich man was a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who would gladly have eaten his fill of the scraps that fell from the rich man's table. The introduction of Lazarus is strikingly different than the introduction of the rich man. Lazarus is the Latin translation of the Hebrew Eleazar, which means literally, God is my help. This is a real man, an individual with a proper name. And what is Lazarus doing? He's sitting at the door of dives. In an era of Palestine in which knives, forks, and napkins didn't exist, people ate their food with their hands. And if you were very wealthy, you wiped your hands with chunks of bread and tossed them away. That's why the dogs are here. They're fighting Lazarus for the discarded crumbs. Lazarus is a sick man, covered in open, ulcerated wounds. Lazarus is a man of wretched poverty, a beggar battling wild animals for a few crumbs. His place in this world couldn't possibly be more different than dives. And then quite suddenly, Luke shifts focus, and he tells us that both men died. The soul of Lazarus was accompanied by angels, while the soul of the rich man was brought to torment. What was the sin of dives? He didn't mock or abuse Lazarus. He wasn't intentionally cruel or callous. He didn't complain when Lazarus consumed his discarded crumbs. The sin of dives is that he never even saw Lazarus, never noticed him, never even occurred to him to help Lazarus, to alleviate his suffering. Dives was a man who could behold bitter suffering, and yet there was no answering cry of pity in his heart. There's a terrifying warning here. We may have the power to change the world, but the world has the power to change us. This rich man became so consumed by his wealth, his power, his pleasure, his prestige, that he became blind to everything else. Blind to such simple things as mercy, compassion, suffering. Something about dives became inhuman. That's why he has no name. But Lazarus, despite all his suffering, his sickness, his dire circumstances, Lazarus was a man who clung to God, who trusted in God, who loved God, who looked for everything, even the smallest crumbs, to God. What about us? Because Jesus told this parable to the Pharisees, but this gospel is addressed to our lives. Could we truly say with St. Francis of Assisi that God is my everything? When we look on the plight of the suffering all around us, the homeless on the streets, the beggar on the corner, the bullied kid in your classroom, the slandered coworker at the next desk, does it pierce our hearts with pity and compassion? Do we respond with mercy? Or are we just as blind as Dives? Just as blind as he was to Lazarus? That reveals the condition of our hearts. It tells us the truth about ourselves. Have we lost something of our humanity by striving after the things of this world? Or are we Eleazar, he who clings to God? Because at the end of our life, we're all going to knock on that door. To some of us, like Dives, he's going to say, I never knew you. I don't know your name. And to some, he's going to say, you are the one who clung to me. Thanks for listening to A Simple Word. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you again next week.
Everyone says they want to end world hunger, but no one wants to actually feed the poor. I heard a friar say this once at one of our ministries, and I just think it is a profoundly insightful statement that works on a couple of different levels. It speaks directly to the issue of poverty and hunger, obviously, but I think it has something to say about every situation, whether it be major political issues or our own personal call to holiness, where we say we want change, but change doesn't come.
The United States is one of the most prosperous nations in the world. Despite this, however, millions of Americans wrestle with the challenge of hunger, uncertain from where their next meal will come. Around 1 in 7 people in the country, or nearly 45 million, grapple with food insecurity. This glaring truth contrasts sharply with the nation's relatively high average income per capita, and the billions of tons of surplus and unused food discarded as waste each year. Every day at noon, George Brown comes to this church to have his meal.
Every day.
For how many years already?
Oh, lot of years. Lot of years. I think since 98.
98.
Yeah.
Brown is unemployed. His sole reason for being here is hunger. He's one of tens of millions of Americans who lack sufficient food and who must rely on community soup kitchens for survival.
Why you coming here, George?
I come here, I got sick from my heart. I got heart problems now. I used to work, I didn't have no time to come here, but I got sick, I lost my house because I couldn't pay the taxes. It's sad being homeless. Ooh, I never thought it was gonna happen to me.
It's not just those without jobs or homes. Numerous employed individuals also rely on this soup kitchen because their incomes fall short of covering their expenses. Erwin Jones works for a company, but his income after taxes and other expenditures places him in a condition of deprivation.
It helped me a lot along the way. You meet a lot of nice people, that want help. You got to ask for it, you want it, because, you just can't just fall back and just say, I don't need that. No, you got to ask for it.
Despite the seemingly low unemployment rate in America, many working individuals still struggle to earn sufficient income. Consequently, they experience poverty, of which hunger is a major element. According to a report by the Department of Agriculture, at least 17 million American households experienced food insecurity in 2022. with nearly 13 million children living in a family which had problems getting food at some point during the year.
We do something called a poverty check.
Yeah,
So
tell
there,
us about
so
this.
there would
I
have to
love
be
this.
there should be a poverty check.
All right, so tell us how it works in your friary, and then tell me what it would look like when you came to my house and went through each room.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah.
Kick open the door.
That's, I mean, we wouldn't quite do that, but I know what you're saying. So we do it now once a year, and it's it's both communal and personal. So we have something in our rule which goes through what we call poverty check, and it kind of there's these questions. We do it all together of. So there's like very particular questions about like, you know, like what's animating your, like what has brought you sort of deeper to a sense of poverty? Like, do you remember why we're doing it? These types of question. And then it's like practical of, or like what has encouraged you in your life of poverty lately? And then it's like, does the friary have any like, things that they don't need? Have we
The
been
coffee
faithful?
machine. Shut up, brother innocent.
So stuff like that happens though, where it's like, well, has anybody used this thing for a while? And they're like, well, no, but you know, it's that. So that type of stuff really does happen.
I would love you to put like a candid camera somewhere in the room, and I want you to sit all the brothers down and explain to them why you feel convicted that we need to just get rid of the coffee machine.
I'm sure it would not go over well. That would not be a long
But what if
conversation.
you said it with great seriousness? You know what I mean? With a tear in your eye.
Yeah.
I wonder how that would go.
Yeah.
I would love to see it.
Yeah, we're like,
You know what? How about you don't drink it, okay?
That's kind of yeah. Well, yeah, we're gonna keep doing it. Yeah, it's like it's been worked out. You're not gonna get anywhere trying to get coffee out of the friary, nor will you'll be met with compassionate walls. You know what I mean? They're padded walls.
Compassionate. I love it.
Yeah, they might be padded walls, but you're not gonna move them. You know?
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so how does it work in your friary, the poverty check for the individual friar?
So then it's you kind of go and there's like some stuff for you to go and reflect on your own, again, experience of poverty, dependence on God, divine providence. We have the language of the friars are to be content with the minimum necessary, not the maximum allowed.
Wow.
And so is there like, you kind of check your spirit of that? Do you have things that you don't need, etc.? I would say for us though, it's something that we, in the friaries I've been on, we kind of pay attention to it. Like it's like we do a official poverty check once a month, but it's kind of something that we're always keeping eyes on and having
So do
conversations
you have a
about.
fellow brother walk into your cell and look around?
No.
That'd be cool.
That would be different. Like I've heard the companions, I think they're called the companions, do
of
that.
the cross.
Yeah.
Yeah, up in Canada. Maybe that's where I heard it.
Yeah, I think they do that. We don't do that. No. No. But also everyone kind of knows.
It'd help if you didn't have like drawers or cupboards.
Yeah.
All your belongings are just in a black plastic bag.
Everybody
Corner of the
knows
room.
everything you have, really.
Really?
Because
What's been an example of something that was superfluous that you had that you're like, I gotta get rid of this?
what would be something superfluous that I had?
Yeah.
I mean, I once had. There's also the joke of sometimes you do accidentally get poverty checked by a brother. When I just moved, I'm a basketball player. I used to be a basketball player, so I do have like basketball shoes. And I left them in like a communal closet, which I thought is where we were storing shoes. And somebody, like a poor guy, came to the door and needed something, so he gave away my basketball shoes. So I have had my basketball shoes poverty checked. What is something that I what would be? It's hard because I don't like stuff. I don't want stuff. I
Yeah.
like to live simply.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to think
That's
of
good.
have I like. And again, we're talking about like.
What's been the
I don't have house sandals.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Like, like I have
you
one
don't-
pair of sandals, and if I'm gonna wear sandals in the house, I'm not gonna wear a different set to like.
We live very different lives, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like things that would be a good like have been good debates are like, could we have like communal like GPSs?
Yeah.
Because we used to have maps, then we'd print things off on MapQuest, and now there's like, can we have some communal GPSs? And I think the leaning has been towards using them, but those would be a hot debate.
Yeah.
Like cell phones is a hot topic. Definitely laptops would be a hot topic. Like if people need or
Well,
using
am I
those.
right? Am I right in my understanding that y'all don't have Wi-Fi in your friaries.
Correct.
Please keep that up.
Yeah.
Please never not do that. I
Yeah.
feel like if you gave into that, that would be a sign that your order is on the verge of decline. I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anything about you, so forgive me for just
Sure. No,
talking
no, no,
about your
that's great.
family
Yeah.
like that. But yeah.
And there's something though, right? Like you're saying something like there's something that the people of God want from us. Like there's a certain way in which we offer an encouragement or some sort of hope. And there's a variety of reasons, but one of those is there's something that's encouraging about us not having Wi-Fi.
Well, I said to you before we jump back on that my wife and I are about to get rid of Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long we'll last, but I was really impressed with my wife that she was just as on board as I am.
Yep.
Because it just makes the house safer too. Especially now we've got teenagers in the house and, you know, just having those smart TVs, you know, like it's just so, it's almost like the more technology a parent lets in is a whole lot more work you have to do.
Yeah.
It's actually easier to just not give your children phones. I understand some people
Yeah.
can't do that. Maybe their children travel, maybe
Yeah.
they work. I understand that. But I'm just saying, like, to open up a can of worms, you then have to deal with it.
Yep.
Whereas to not open it up seems like a big battle, but it's not nearly as much of a battle
Yeah.
as then having to deal with it. You know?
Yeah, and I've heard people who like have like, if you will, who've experienced like suffered addiction or have like sort of addictive personalities applies to different things. And it's like, it's easier, for example, if it's applied to sort of like cupcakes. Say this dude's like, he always binges on whatever he does. And he said, well, why can't you just have one cupcake? And he'd be like, you don't understand. It's actually
Totally.
much easier for me just to have zero than to have one. And because once the things in there, it's always there. I want more. And I think there's something similar with internet, and it's just, we know it's addictive. It's kind of always calling to us. And if we just like, no, we're not going to have it here in this space.
Yeah.
I do think it can be quite freeing.
As religious, one of the great gifts is to be able to bring by our presence a reminder to everyone we see and ourselves that life is absurd without God. But that with Him, all of a sudden, even the hard things, even the sad things, even the things that we can't make any sense of, they take on kind of His own luminous quality because He's there with us in them. And if God thought it was worthwhile to suffer, to be tired and lonely, sad, distracted, then all of our sufferings are worthwhile also.
During this time, it's been an especially difficult time, and we've been able to just have the presence of what we would consider Jesus in our midst, as the sisters have been with us to provide peace, to provide support, to provide love, to be able to provide things that we didn't even know that we were missing here.
We receive in this ministry in downtown Steubenville, and hopefully the gift that we give is that Jesus, who is poor in me, can meet Jesus, who is poor in my brother or sister. And all of that's possible because the poorest Jesus of all, our Eucharistic Lord, feeds us every day. Encountering Him every day in that place where He gives Himself in all vulnerability in the Eucharist and on the cross, meeting Him there gives me the strength and courage and the faith to meet Him on the other crosses, the crosses of homelessness, the crosses of just deep loneliness, the crosses of addiction, the crosses of joblessness, hunger, all of those things. I don't have to be afraid to see Him there because I've already seen Him in the chapel first thing. So every day as I go to ministry, it's so important for me to remember that I'm not coming pristine and strong to help poor, weak, wounded people. Rather, like Jesus, He emptied Himself. He divested Himself of the appearance of divinity, and He came in weakness to save us. By His poverty, we have become rich. Just Wednesday, I was praying with this one lady, and she was just having a hard time of things. And at the end of our prayer, I just, sincerely looked up at her and I said, "It's really good to see you today." And she just, at that point, just started crying. And she said, "It's really good to have someone want to see me." And it's moments like that even if what we're doing seems so simple and so small and like it's not changing the course of history, it might have changed the course of one person's life in a significant way that day. Maybe giving her courage to face a difficult situation, or to go back and love her family, or to make the decisions she needs to live a better life, a life closer to God.